So participation is going to look a little different than it did in TI 1.0. Next slide, please. So for primary care behavioral health, participation is at the tax ID level. So this will be all non-specialty clinics that are really fit for participating in TI here and for coordinating services for individuals. We're really looking at, for primary care, any integrated clinics that are licensed and enrolled with access, as well as maybe any non-licensed primary care clinics that would have MDs, DOs, and NPs delivering primary care as family practice or pediatrician. We are focused on also really want to advocate out and try to bring OBGYN practices into the program as well. So if you do have any interest in participating, or you know anybody that could be interested, please connect them to us so that we can touch base offline. Behavioral health clinics, we're looking at 77 behavioral health outpatient centers as well as integrated clinics who will be eligible for the program. FQHCs are typically excluded and only eligible for justice. However, if you do submit claims under a 77 behavioral health provider ID or an IC provider ID at the same location, we can count those as your behavioral health participation, and the services would build behind those provider IDs specifically are going to drive the payment. So justice clinics, again, it's going to be a little bit nuanced. Not going to get through the whole application piece for that. But generally speaking, we're looking at provider types that deliver integrated care or ensure reliable access to both primary care and behavioral health services. So talking community health centers, ICs, 77s, or otherwise. We do require a county or state parole, or county probation or state parole partner, and then other justice agencies are greatly encouraged. And we are going to be reviewing the applications for the justice clinics and selecting those that best meet the needs of their patient population and have the strongest relationship with their criminal justice partners. Really important, and we're going to stress this a few times throughout the presentation, is the Medicaid enrollment piece. You need to make sure that access provider enrollment is completely up to date with all of your clinic service address informations. All of your belly button providers, non-facility providers need to have service addresses tied to them, their specialties enrolled with access, and the tax ID affiliation, of course. Next slide, please. TI 2.0 timeline. So we are currently in the application onboarding year. We go by federal fiscal years, October through September. So as we go into year 2, we're going to be focusing on establishing new systems, protocols, implementing them in year 3, and then really focusing in on target performance measure targets, HEDIS measures in years 4 and 5. We will also have performance measure targets in years 2 and 3. I anticipate year 2 will be more FYI only, and a small part of the incentive is going to be tied to the performance measure target attainment in year 3 itself. We try to reserve the bulk of the funds for the bulk of the effort, which will be implementation of those systems and processes. Next slide, please. So here in year 1 application process, we have several application summaries. We're going to go through a lot of this information in detail here in a minute. So actually, I'll skip past a lot of this, save it for later. Next slide, please. Years 2 through 5, again, years 2 through 3, creating and implementing policies related to those initiatives that I had mentioned before. Years 2 through 5, we are still working on selecting the performance measures. We are currently waiting on CMS to recommend what measures they would like us to do. And then we will respond back and say, well, these are the ones that we want to do, until they, finally, we all agree on what measures we're going to do here. So they're not finalized. We will communicate them as soon as, we have an indication that CMS is going to approve them. We are looking at some of the TI 1.0 measures as much as we can, for measures that we're familiar with, and ones that, if there are inequities prevalent, that we'll be able to leverage those lessons learned from 1.0 to improve the performance and improve health outcomes of a lower performing group. Next slide, please. Technical assistance, I will turn over to Sam and Kaylee.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry about earlier, but glad you can hear me now. So yeah, we are the Tip Quick team that stands for Targeted Investments Program, Quality Improvement Collaborative, and we're housed here at ASU. And we provide a variety of technical assistance offerings. So we support participants with many things, including peer learning and collaboration, individualized technical assistance as requested for process-based quality improvement assistance, internal reporting review, and developing and disseminating best practice guides, as well as assistance with onboarding when new members join your team. Next slide, please. We also offer dashboards for providers and health plans. These dashboards, as you can see in the picture, that's kind of what they look like. They display your organization's performance on various measures with a 5-month claims lag. And in order to better understand your performance, we also offer personalized analysis sessions for quality improvement purposes. We can also help you to better understand our attribution processes and knowing who's in your numerator and denominator lists. And yeah, just stay tuned for even more offers for Tip 2.0. We have a lot of great things coming up. Thank you. Back to the Access team.
Thank you. So in this slide, we're going to be going over the application deadlines and deliverables. The application portal is already open which was opened on September 1st, 2023. So the BH and Justice applicants can already sign up since it's already open, and that'll be closed on October 20th. For primary care, it opens on September 12th and ends on the same day. Participants must meet one of the two options for the EHR requirements. The first one being a scope of work, meaning that your current EHR system is already sharing data bidirectionally with Contexture. The other option is an EHR commitment letter, and you would use this option if you don't have a system that's currently bidirectionally sharing data with Contexture. Next would be to attest to meeting the process requirements. So that'll be the application document review that we'll go over in the next few slides. And all the application letters will be sent out by December 2023, and the year 1 payments will be received in fall 2024 for the participants who meet the baseline deliverables. So this is where you can find the application requirements on our TI website. So if you go to plans and providers on the main Access website and go to TI, on the left side, you'll see a TI 2.0 application option. And if you click on that and you click on application requirements, it'll take you to this page where you can view all the application requirements for each area of concentration. Here we have an example of one of the process requirements. So each process requirement is going to have multiple supporting documentation that are going to be needed, which can be seen here as 3.1 and 3.2. And each supporting documentation level will have elements that you need to meet within the documents that you share. So now we'll be talking about the application document review. If you have not requested access assistance through the provider interest form, please do so before September 15th. That way we can review your documents on a first come, first served basis, and we'll stop reviewing documents on October 6th. So now we'll do a quick demo of the form. If you've requested assistance, you should have received an email with this form. So first you'll say that you filled out the provider interest form if you did. Then we'll put in a provider name. We'll just call it test. And then you're going to put in your TIN and area of concentration. And most likely the first time you're submitting, you're going to put this option. So on question 6 here, you'll see multiple links. The second one will be the one you'll use to submit your documents. The first one will have an example if you need one. So once you click on the link, it'll take you to this page and you will click select files. And we only accept PDF files. You're going to put in your first name and your last name and click upload. Once that's done, you will select this option. And if you need assistance with your access provider information, which is highly recommended, you will fill out this form also in the same way. You will download the Excel form and then upload it to the link here. And then you'll put in your contact information and you will click submit on the form. Make sure to submit your form after uploading the documents, so that way we will receive all of your documents. Over to you, Jane.
All right, thank you so much, Vishal. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you all the process of submitting your TI application. What Vishal just showed you is where you're going to be submitting your documents for review and feedback, but the TI portal is where you're going to submit your finalized documents. So just wanted to make that distinction there. Go ahead, go to the next slide, Vishal. So there's two different ways to get to the application on Access Online. Your first option, you can just click on that hyperlink. You all are going to get a copy of this presentation, so you can just click on the link or just Google Access Online and you'll be able to access it that way. Or you can go to our TI website. Vishal kind of talked you through it already, and you'll just click on where it says Access Online, and that will take you to Access Online. So if you can go to the next slide. Once you get on to Access Online, you're going to put in your username and password. Next slide. And so once you get there, you're going to see your targeted investments program portal link. You'll click on that. If you do not have the targeted investments portal link, that means that your Access Online master account holder needs to grant you access to the portal. And where you're going to find information about who is your master account holder, if you all can see that little part there where it says account information, usually on that left-hand side panel is where you're going to see the name of the person who has that access. And so you'll ask them to provide you with that access. So for those of you who already have the link, you'll click on TI 2.0. That's where the application portal is. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about the tax ID portion of it, the security notice agreement, and then authorized user form, which are all kind of the beginning stages of that application. So next slide. Something to note here before we talk more about the application is that if you're an organization who has multiple TINs associated with your organization, that's going to be a completely separate application for each TIN. Most of you only have one TIN, so it doesn't apply, but just note if you are one of those organizations that falls into that category, you will need to submit separate applications per TIN. So for the purposes of this, you're going to enter in your one tax ID, you're going to hit search. Vishal, next slide. Once you hit that, you're going to see your security notice come up. So make sure to review that, and then you'll select I agree. And then once you do that, your authorized user form section is going to pop up, and then you're going to click on that targeted investments authorized user form hyperlink to download the form onto your computer. So next slide. When I was doing this is how it showed up on my computer, but if you just check your downloads, it should be there. As you all could see, the downloaded link. And one thing to note for the authorized user form is that it needs to be signed by the executive or administrator that's responsible for TI attestation for your organization. So this individual might not be you. Even though you're filling out the application, it might be somebody else at your organization. So you all need to figure out who that person is. Another thing to note is this person is also responsible for receiving that sensitive payment related information. And so just note that there's a distinction there. So once you have that form reviewed, signed, and you're ready to upload it, you'll go ahead and select that area where it says type. You'll select authorized signature form. You'll choose the file from your computer, and then you'll click on upload document or upload attachment, and that will take you to your next page. Next slide. So very important here, once you've uploaded the document and you see how it looks like on there, it's going to say pending. It's really important that you put the name, type out the name and then the email of the individual who signed the form. So again, that might not be you, it might be somebody else at your organization, but that name needs to match because we're going to have somebody validate that. So if those names do not match, then it will be rejected. And then just to note, for when that person is signing that form, just make sure that it's the signature is fine, but when the area where it says you can type the name, make sure that that's legible too, so that people can validate it much easier. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about selecting your area of concentration. It's really simple. All you do is you just put a check mark next to the area of concentration that you are applying for, and then you hit next. Once you do that, in this example, we went ahead and selected all of them. We just wanted to show you all for the purposes of this, but only the areas of concentration that you are applying for are going to show up. And for this section, you're going to need to complete the clinic selection as well as the eligibility criteria for each area of concentration. So, and all your applications, you're going to begin with that clinic selection portion first. Next slide. For this portion, Cam, thank you so much for taking this one.
Absolutely. Thank you for handing it off. Next slide, please. So selecting the clinics that are going to participate in the program, you'll go to the clinic selection for each area of concentration. Next slide, please. So generally speaking, the list is going to auto-populate with the clinics that are known to access provider enrollment that are eligible for that area of concentration. So if you're applying for behavioral health, any 77s or ICs are going to pre-populate here. If you're applying for primary care, any ICs or service addresses that are affiliated with your O1 group provider ID are going to automatically populate. There are going to be any service addresses or provider IDs that have been active since 10/1/2022. That's the beginning of our application program year, technically. And so that'll be the same each year of application attestation moving forward. So what you're going to do is first confirm that the service information, the service address, the NPIs, anything else that's automatically pulled in is accurate. If anything is inaccurate, you need to make sure that you're going into APEP, the Access Provider Enrollment Portal, and correcting that as soon as possible. Sometimes those changes take a few days, and you want to make sure that those changes take effect before the application is due, of course. So please make sure that you're doing that. Again, the addresses need to be completely accurate all the way down to the suite number. One of the things that we're going to be checking, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but one of the things that we check is alignment with the Access Provider Enrollment Database, what information is selected here on the application, and then what is known to the federal provider database, the NPPES registry that CMS holds. It's really important that the government sources tie with each other, as CMS is increasingly requiring access to report NPI information for incentive programs. We need to make sure that we're providing that information whenever available. So more on that in a moment. But again, you want to make sure that the service addresses that are listed here accurately reflect the exact service address that you're going to be participating at. You're going to be selecting the clinics that are best equipped to do TI related work. So you would not be selecting maybe like specialty clinics or maybe specific providers or clinics that are not set up for care coordination and TI related population health activities. Next slide, please. So if you're primary care, there's a few things that I need to get here. So first is the NPI selection. We get a lot of questions on this. So the application itself is going to stop you if you put in the NPI that is affiliated with your O1 group filler. We are not looking for the NPI affiliated with that. I understand that that is the NPI that's used for claims. I understand that the NPI that is tied to a clinic is not something that's used for claims or access provider enrollment. Again, this goes to that federal guidance where we need to tie with CMS whenever possible, and we need to be ensuring that if CMS does have a record of that clinic's NPI and service address, that access provider enrollment and the application tie to that. And so if you are primary care with an unlicensed facility, you don't know if you have an NPI for that facility, we would strongly recommend that you call NPPES or CMS. We have a guide that we can provide to you that gives you more instructions on how to apply for one, when it's appropriate to apply for one, and where you can go for technical assistance. What we need you to do is, call and confirm if you have one, if you need one. If CMS tells you no, you don't need one, then we're happy. Again, they're the experts here. We're trying to comply with their direction. And we're trying to make sure that everybody is in sync with the incentive program moving forward, and that we know which clinics are participating. And so if you call CMS, they tell you you don't have a clinic NPI, you don't need one, then what you're going to do is enter 10 zeros into the application in order to satisfy the requirement of entering in a 10-digit number that does not match your O1 group clinic ID. So I want to give you a warning here for the folks that say, oh, I could just put in 10 zeros and call it a day. We are going to be checking the NPPES registry with all the applications. And so if we find an NPI for that clinic, maybe you didn't do your homework on it, and that service address is different than the one that you put into the application, and that service address ties into some other provider enrollment information that we do find within access provider enrollment for an individual, it's very likely that that address will be rejected from your application, and you will not receive payment for any members assigned to primary care providers at that location only. So very, very important that you do that due diligence. If you have questions on it, please reach out. Again, we can provide a link to the NPPES guide to ensure that everybody knows where to go for questions and for information. Next slide, please. And so I had mentioned that the portal will automatically be populated with integrated clinic and service address information that are tied to your O1 group billers. In the event that you don't have service addresses tied to an O1 group biller, or you don't have, and all of your facilities are unlicensed, what you're going to do is click that add button, and then you're going to enter in the provider site name. So whatever you call the clinic, you're going to enter in the clinic NPI to the earlier conversation, and then enter in the service address. Again, I cannot stress enough that that service address needs to be an exact match to your clinic address, down to the suite number, zip code, absolutely the same. And you need to make sure that the individual providers that work in that facility have the same service address enrolled with access as well. So if you go to APEP, you'll be able to go to the service addresses for each individual provider and scroll through the service addresses. Again, if there's a zip code that's off, if there's a suite that's off, you need to make sure that's corrected before you submit the application, so we can ensure that we're calculating the payment as accurately and completely as we can. Any discrepancies with these service addresses can result in the membership assigned to that provider not being counted for payment. I think I stressed that heavily enough, but we're going to get some more questions on it at the end. So for now, let's move on. The eligibility criteria. Jane, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Cam. If you can go to the next slide, Vishal. So as you also earlier with the clinic selection, you hit the edit button to begin that process. You have to do the clinic selection first before you begin with the eligibility criteria section. Next slide. So this is just a general overview of what it's going to look like for all of your screens. We're going to go into more specifics for each area of concentration. But in general, you're going to attest yes to the eligibility criteria that applies to your organization, and then select no for eligibility criteria that is not applicable. And just as a reminder, these eligibility criteria are aligned with those process requirements that you all have been seeing in your application summary. So, and then in number 2, you're going to be uploading the documents that align with these eligibility criteria. So let's get into it for the specific areas of concentration here in a little bit, but next slide. So for PCP, this is what it's gonna look like on your end, just for the eligibility criteria section. So let's go to the next slide and we'll talk more in detail. This is just a preview. So for eligibility criteria 1 through 5, those are aligned exactly with the process requirements. And so if you all remember, for PCP, you need to meet at least 3 out of 5 of the criteria. So you'll attest yes to the 3 that align that you've already created documents for, and then you'll just select no for the criteria that you did not create documents for. And then you're going to upload documentation for the ones that you attested yes to. For eligibility criteria 6, that is one that you just need to read, make sure it aligns with your organization, and then attest yes, but no documentation is required for 6. And then for 7 and 8, those are your EHR requirements. So you all know that you either need to do a signed scope of work with Contexture or submit an EHR commitment letter. And so you'll just need to only attest yes to one of them, and then go ahead and select no for the other one that applies, and then upload documentation that aligns with that. And so that's the general process, but I'm going to go ahead and take you through for BH and Justice as well. So for BH, this is what it looks like. It's a lot shorter. So if you go to the next slide, Vishal, I'll go ahead and explain a little bit more. So for behavioral health, you all remember that you need to meet 2 out of 3 of the criteria. So remember those process requirements and the documents that you're creating, you only needed to do 2 out of 3 of those. And so this is where that comes in here. So you'll be attesting yes to only 2 of the criteria, and then select no for the criteria that you did not prepare documents for. And then again, just to reiterate, you're uploading documents for the eligibility criteria that you have prepared, that you selected yes for. And then for eligibility criteria number 4 on that screen, similar to before, you're just going to read it, make sure it aligns with your organization, and attest yes, but no documentation is required for number 4. And then 5 and 6, those are your EHR requirements again. So you're either going to be attesting yes to one and then select no for the other. And then again, upload signed scope of work or EHR commitment letter for the one that applies. Next slide. So for Justice, y'all will notice that it's a little bit different, and we're just going to get into it here in the next slide. For Justice, so everybody who's applying for Justice, you will be attesting yes to eligibility criteria 1, and that is your Justice commitment letter 1. So please review it, and then you're going to be uploading your Justice commitment letter for that. For criteria 2 and 3, you're just going to need to review those again, make sure that they align, and then just note that there's no documentation required for them, but you will need to be attesting yes for those. And then for eligibility criteria 4 and 5, those again are your EHR requirements. You'll notice that it's kind of the same process for all of them. The EHR requirement is for all areas of concentration. So similar to before, you'll select whichever one applies to you, and then upload either the signed scope of work or the EHR requirement for the one that applies for your organization. So that is the eligibility criteria for all areas of concentration. Let's go to the next slide, Vishal. Now we're going to talk about that document upload process. It's all on the same screen, but we've split it up just for explanation purposes, but it's that gray section that I showed you all earlier. Vishal, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Yeah, so this is that gray section. It's going to look the same for all areas of concentration, but your options are going to be different. And something to note here, just as a reminder, no PHI or any identifiable information in these documents. That's going to be really important for you all when you're submitting your documents. Next slide. So you all have already been familiarized a little bit with uploading document like from the beginning of the application when you did your agreement. So it's a similar format, but it's different for this portion. So you're gonna go ahead and select which document you want. Under type, you'll click upload attachment when you are ready for that document to be onto the application, and only click submit, the submit button, when you have uploaded all of your documents and you're ready to complete and move on to the next part of your application. So just wanted to note that only click submit when you're ready to move on from this entire section. Next slide. So I'll kind of just go over this really briefly because we kind of talked about the eligibility criteria section already. But one thing I will note here, this is a PCP only example, is that you all will notice for eligibility criteria 1, for example, it says 1.1 and 1.2 documents. So just make sure that you are submitting all of the required documents for each eligibility criteria. Otherwise, that it won't be accepted. So just make sure that if you're testing yes to criteria number 1, that 1.1 and 1.2 documents are all uploaded onto the portal. And same thing goes for that EHR requirement. You all require to meet the EHR requirement. Make sure that you're selecting either one of those, signed scope of work or EHR commitment letter there. And if you can just go to the next slide, Vishal. This is what it's going to look like for behavioral health applicants. It's very similar, same concept. And then for the next one, Vishal, for justice, same thing. Because you're testing yes to eligibility criteria 1 for justice, that is going to be meaning that you need to upload your justice commitment letter, and then again that EHR requirement, you need to submit 1 document for that. All right, next slide. So now we're going to just show you a quick overview of what the completed document should look like. So make sure for each and every single area of concentration that you're applying for, that you're seeing that blue completed indicator. It should say completed for each section, clinical section, as well as the eligibility criteria section. And then you're able to view these documents after you've completed each section. We highly recommend doing that, just making sure that everything is correct. All the clinics are exactly how they need to be, and all of the documents are uploaded. But essentially, once you do one area of concentration, you'll just repeat that same process over and over again for each area of concentration that you're applying for. And then only hit submit when you are ready to complete the application. So you've viewed everything, you've made sure that everything looks good. That is when you click submit to finalize the application. So Vishal, if you don't mind going to the next slide here. This is just an example of what the completed application view should look like on your end. And you will be getting a automated confirmation email sent to you after it is over. But that completes the process. Thank you all. Vishal is going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll be moving on to the follow-up actions. The first thing would be to complete the provider interest form by September 15th if you have not done so, to request the application document review. Make sure to subscribe to the TI newsletter to stay up to date with all of the current information. Make sure to review all the TI application requirements. Make sure to confirm access to the Access Online account. To avoid any future problems, please confirm all your clinics and providers are accurately enrolled with Access and are credentialed with the contracted MCOs. And before submitting the final application on October 20th, make sure to prepare the application materials, which includes gathering documents and attending the office hours. And you will have notice of your decision by December 29th this year. These are some of the resources that you can access by clicking on the links. This PowerPoint will be shared as a PDF to you. And on the targeted investments page, the first link that's on the left side, we will have documents uploaded soon that are examples for the documents that you'll need to upload. Now we'll move on to the Q&A portion.
Where would you find the provider interest form?
So on the link, we'll send this PowerPoint to you as a PDF, and if you click on the yellow button where it says submit a provider interest form, you'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
Just put it into the chat as well.
I've gotten some mixed reviews on if we're able to work on the application, save it, if we need to go grab something and come back. I've heard that there's mixed, yes, like you can save it, knows that you have to do everything all in one sitting. Before I start the application, can you give me some guidance on that?
Yeah, absolutely. My understanding is should save in between each step. So as you finish out the clinic selection or finish out the eligibility selection, as long as you're going back to that area of concentration page, it should save. If that's not the case, please send us an email, let us know, and we can take a look into the development side.
Okay, I'll also jump in and say, because when I was testing it and creating this desk aid here, I had to go back in multiple times. Like, you would just click edit again, and then make your edits and then save it again, and you'll be able to move forward in the application still. The only thing is just to remember, when you hit that final submit button, that's when it's like sent over and no more edits are able to be made. So don't hit submit until you're ready to complete the application.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for going over all of this with us as well. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for attending and voicing questions.
I have a question related to once you receive the confirmation mailed to the business address, and then you go back in, how to start the actual application once you log in. Like, we're struggling to be able to do that because it's asking for, I think it's provider type, and we're 77. And so I'm not sure, we're just not sure, we're stuck right there.
Jane, can you take that one? Maybe walk back through to the application slide, see exactly where we're getting stuck.
Yeah, sure. Vishal, do you mind going back to that beginning section? Just at the very beginning. Yeah, let's see. Oh, yep, right there. So go to the next part. When you're logging in, do you mind just going one more back, Vishal? When you're logging in, are you able to, well, first of all, do you have like your username and password is working, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then Vishal, next slide. And then when you get to the login page, are you seeing this targeted investments portal? Is that the issue?
Yes, we don't see that.
Okay, so you see, I wish we would have included the whole screen here, but for personal identifiers, we removed it. But where it says account information, Vishal, can you hover over that?
Mm-hmm.
So that is where you're going to see who your master account holder is for your organization. Whoever that person is, you need to contact them, and then they will be able to grant you access. It happens within 5 minutes. It'll pop up. The target investments portal, that is going to be able to pop up. So go ahead, log back into your Access Online and identify who that person is. And if you're still having issues, if it's not showing up that way, let me know, and we'll go ahead and reach out to our ISD team for more details.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And then a second question I have is, I was reading in the material, are you required to have a large number of participants at your site? And do you have to work with all the access plans?
I can take that one. At least for the latter, if you're not participating in TIP Justice, no, you do not need to accept all of the access plans. It's up to you. Really, we're going to be using your access membership assigned or the number of behavioral health service units that are billed under your access provider ID for access members to drive payment. So don't need to have all plans, contracts with all plans. I didn't quite follow the first part. Are you talking about providers under your organization?
Sorry, clients, like a large number of clients. Do you have to have in order to participate with TIP?
Got it. Short answer is no. For eligibility purposes, I will asterisk that with the number of, if you're applying for primary care, the number of members assigned to PCPs in the organization at participating sites is going to drive payment. So that's one place where membership is important. And then if you're applying for behavioral health, the number of service units provided to individuals drives your payment. So the more individuals, then the more services, the higher your payment.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do have one more question. Sorry. From what we've been told, that applications and everything had to be turned in and completed by September 30th. But on one of those slides, it said October 20th. Did that get moved or am I confused?
It got
Yes.
moved. Oh, sorry.
got it.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna say, yes, it got moved to October 20th.
Well, I am not going to be sad about that. That does not break my heart.
Glad to hear it. We like whole hearts around here. Let's see, flipping through the chat here. Thank you all for your engagement and your questions today. Really helpful for our purposes, but also for your peers here on the line. I wanted to double back to a question. Scroll back a little bit. Did I find it? Give me just a moment. All right, so Dr. Vade had a question on, is there someone we can contact to update our provider list in APEP? So Access Provider Enrollment Portal is managed by Access Division of Member and Provider Enrollment and Services. And so I would recommend that you log into APEP and see what you can do within your own organization's capabilities first, being able to look up information and update provider information to the best extent possible. If you need to update information under a specific provider, maybe being able to speak to that provider to understand how to update their information. Otherwise a DMPS, DMPE team will be able to assist. Jane, I'm vaguely familiar with the APEP process. You're much more familiar with this. Do you have any additional guidance that you can provide for individuals trying to update provider lists?
My main thing is always just go to the experts, the APEP provider enrollment team. There's a call number as well as an email, and I always direct my questions straight to them.
So very, very important that you all, confirm that Access Provider enrollment is as up to date and again, as pristine as possible with any service addresses, specialties, tax ID affiliation for any belly button non-facility providers, as well as any facilities. If you're behavioral health or an IC licensed facility, you want to make sure those service addresses are completely accurate. And that needs to be updated and completely trued up as of September 30th. We did extend the application deadline to October 20th, but technically with the end of the application period being the end of program year 1, that is a very big priority to ensure that everything is cleaned up as of that September 30th date. So please, please, please prioritize that. If you have questions, please reach out to the and experience any difficulty with the APEP platform itself. DMPS and DMPE is going to be your best bet. If you have specific questions on what you need to update, please, you can reach out to the TI team here. We can give you a little bit more specifics on that. One that I did not mention, I apologize, but if you have any termed providers that have left the practice, please make sure that they are accurately terminated in the Access Provider Enrollment Portal, no longer affiliated with your TIN, and please make sure that you're updating your health plans. Primary care payment is driven by the number of members assigned to your primary care providers at your organization. So we're only going to count membership that is assigned to providers that are enrolled with Access, that are tied to your TIN, and that have a service address that matches your application here, and providers have an eligible specialty, family practice, pediatrician, et cetera. And so if you update access and you make sure that's pristine, but you don't update the health plan, and the health plan says that you still have members assigned to Dr. Smith, who you recently terminated with access provider enrollment, you got to make sure that that MCO, that access health plan, no longer has members assigned to Dr. Smith, and that when they report it to us, that we can count the membership under a different PCP. Is there any questions on that? I know it's fairly detailed and technical, but I want to make sure if there's any questions on that, we can address them now.
Cam, this is Serena. I do have a question on that.
Okay.
So we're pretty confident about the APEP information, where we're not so confident with the health plans. So we've notified the health plans, and it depends on the plan, but they'll just do a verbal, yes, we have the updates, but there's no real confirmation that we're getting from them. What do you recommend?
Ask them for your PCP assignment roster.
Got it.
They're contractually obligated to get that to you within 10 days.
Thank you, Cam.
You're welcome. Let's go on down to chat to see if there's related questions here. Thank you, team, for getting through the questions. All right, I think there was one from Lily that I missed. I'm going to double back to that one. All right, so question from Lily. My application was approved by the TI team. When downloading my application to access website, do I need to submit the letter of interest again? Yes, so I'll take a stab at answering it. I think I know where you're heading to, but Lily, let me know if you're getting to something else here. So if you go through the application document review process, we're going to review all your process documents, confirm that they check all the eligibility criteria. We're going to go through your provider enrollment information and the clinics that you're applying for, make sure that you know what to enter into the clinic selection page. The two things that we don't check are, well, really one thing we don't check is your EHR commitment letter or EHR scope of work. And so if when you're submitting, so you've already submitted the provider interest form to request the application document assistance. Once you've gone through that process, you don't need to submit the provider interest form again, because you're already on our radar. You've already done the process. When you submit your application through the TI application portal, you're going to need to upload all of those documents into the portal for your final submission, including all the ones that you did with the application document review, as well as that EHR commitment letter or scope of work. You're very welcome, Lily. Going through here. Thank you, Jane, for getting the APEP contact information out. Shannon, does a person who signs the user agreement have to be the same person who does the attestation? No, it does not. Really what we're looking for, the authorized user or user agreement needs to be signed by somebody at the organization that's ultimately responsible for that payment and for those attestations. Basically, if our fraud, waste, and abuse has an issue with the attestation and needs to follow up on specific attestation discrepancies or any questions, they need to know who to reach out to, and ultimately who's going to be working with to iron out that discrepancy. That user will also receive the payment specific information. So when we send out correspondence every year, this is how much you're going to get from each health plan. It's only going to be those users identified on the user agreement form receiving that. And so again, it needs to be signed by somebody that it can take responsibility for that payment, And then you can add in additional names and email addresses at the bottom for other folks that you want to receive that correspondence. But we're really going to maintain, one primary contact, maintained throughout the program, as folks come and go, that will be responsible for that piece. And then let me know if that does not answer your question. All right, you're welcome. Let's see, Dr. Canton, will you please explain what do we do on eligibility requirements criteria checklist? I got a few minutes left. Vishal, can you take that one?
Yeah, this is the question you're requiring to.
Dr. Canton's question.
Yep.
Maybe. Okay.
Yes, so in the pre-application document review, we're looking for 3 out of the 5 process requirements being met for PCP and 2 out of the first 3 process requirements being met for BH. So when you're sending in your documents, they're going to be your policies that contain the elements at each documentation level. So when you're submitting the documents, you should make sure that the policies that you're submitting meet each of the elements in the documentation level. And then you can highlight that and put which document element you think that your policy is meeting. And once you send those over to us, we'll review them. And if everything looks good, we'll send you an email saying that everything looks good and you can use those documents for the final application. Yeah, we are sending the PowerPoint and the video. I think we are at the top of the hour pretty much.
We are. Last call for questions.
Yeah, and if you think of a question that we haven't answered or you think of a new question, you can email us at targetedinvestments@azaccess.gov.
Well, thank you all. Really appreciate you attending today. And again, raising these questions. It helps us, it helps you. Everybody's helped. So win-win-win. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.